You lost, honey? The welfare line is around the corner. Officer David Chen's voice sliced through the federal courthouse entrance like a knife. His eyes scanned Jessica Martinez from head to toe, dismissing her navy pantsuit and leather portfolio as if they were invisible. Jessica reached for her visitor badge clipped to her jacket. Actually, I have an appointment here. Chen laughed, not a friendly laugh, but the kind that makes your stomach turn. An appointment? What kind of appointment? Visiting your boyfriend in lockup? Have you ever walked into a room where someone decided you didn't belong before you even opened your mouth? I'm here for official court business, officer. Jessica's voice stayed calm, professional. Years of experience had taught her not to react to provocation. Official business? Chen stepped closer, invading her personal space. Lady, I've been working this checkpoint for 15 years. I know who belongs here and who doesn't. And you, he paused, his lip curling. You definitely don't belong in a federal courthouse. Jessica held out her visitor pass. If you'd just check my credentials. I don't need to check anything. Chen's hand shot out, not to take the pass, but to knock it from her grip. The plastic badge clattered across the marble floor. Then came the moment that would change everything. Chen's palm connected with Jessica's face with a sharp crack that echoed through the lobby. The force turned her head sideways, and her visitor pass skittered under a bench. Time seemed to freeze. Security cameras whirred above. A dozen witnesses gasped. But Jessica? She simply touched her stinging cheek and slowly bent down to retrieve her badge. As she straightened up, she looked directly at Chen's name tag. Officer David Chen, she said quietly, memorizing every letter. Badge number 4287, I'll remember that. Chen smirked. You threatening me? Get out before I have you arrested for trespassing. Jessica walked toward the exit, her heels clicking against the floor with perfect composure. But here's what Chen didn't see. The slight smile that crossed her face as she pulled out her phone. 2 weeks later, Chen walked into Federal Courtroom 7B with the confidence of a man who'd never faced real consequences. His lawyer, Thomas Barrett, a silver-haired attorney in an expensive suit, patted him on the shoulder. Don't worry, David, we've handled cases like this before. Just stick to the story. The civil rights lawsuit, Martinez versus Chen, was about to begin, and Chen had no idea he was walking into a trap. Tell the court what happened on April 3rd, Barrett said once Chen took the witness stand. Chen adjusted his uniform and spoke with practiced authority. I was performing routine security duties when I noticed a suspicious individual attempting to access the courthouse. The woman refused to follow proper protocols and became aggressive when questioned. Wait, did he just say she became aggressive? The audacity is almost impressive, isn't it? Can you describe her behavior? Barrett continued. She approached my station with fake-looking credentials. When I attempted to verify them, she became hostile and confrontational. She moved toward me in a threatening manner, forcing me to use minimal contact to maintain courthouse security. Jessica sat at the plaintiff's table, representing herself. She wore another sharp suit, charcoal gray this time, and her briefcase was open, revealing neatly organized, color-coded folders. She took notes but showed no emotion as Chen rewrote history. I've worked courthouse security for 15 years, Chen continued, warming to his performance. I've stopped drug dealers, gang members, and people trying to sneak weapons inside. This individual fit a certain profile that raised immediate red flags. What profile was that? Barrett asked. Someone with no legitimate business trying to gain access through intimidation and counterfeit documents. The prosecutor assisting Jessica's case, attorney Lisa Park, stood up. Objection! The witness is making assumptions without foundation. Overruled. Continue. Chen's confidence grew. My actions that day were completely justified. If anything, I showed restraint. The woman was clearly trying to pull some kind of scam, probably hoping to file a lawsuit for a quick payday. He looked directly at Jessica, a smirk playing at his lips. Some people make a career out of playing the victim. Here's where it gets interesting, because while Chen was digging his own grave, Jessica was checking her watch. 11:47 a.m. She had exactly 2 hours and 13 minutes before everything changed. Barrett presented his evidence, carefully edited body cam footage that conveniently started after Chen's initial confrontation. The video showed Jessica appearing to step toward Chen, with audio that had been scrubbed of his provocative comments. As you can see, Barrett told the jury, my client responded appropriately to a potential security threat. 2 of Chen's fellow officers testified as character witnesses. Officer Rodriguez praised Chen's dedication. Officer Kim called him a mentor and role model. David Chen is one of the most professional officers I've ever worked with, Rodriguez said under oath. He treats everyone fairly, regardless of background. Chen returned to the stand for additional questioning, practically radiating smugness. How has this false accusation affected your life? Barrett asked. Chen's voice took on a wounded tone. It's been devastating. My wife, my kids, they've had to deal with public scrutiny. My reputation has been dragged through the mud by someone looking for a payday. I've dedicated 15 years to public service, and this is how I'm repaid? Do you see what he's doing? Playing the victim while actually being the villain. It's almost an art form. Do you regret your actions that day? I regret that this woman chose to make a federal case out of a routine security check. I regret that she's wasting the court's time and taxpayer money with this frivolous lawsuit instead of taking responsibility for her own behavior. Chen glanced at Jessica with barely concealed contempt. She was still taking notes, still maintaining that irritating composure, but he was certain the jury would see through her act. After all, who were they going to believe? A decorated security officer or someone who clearly didn't belong in their courthouse? Chen had no idea his carefully constructed lies were about to explode in his face. When Jessica Martinez stood to take the witness stand, something in the courtroom shifted. It wasn't dramatic, just a subtle change in the air, like the moment before a storm breaks. She moved with deliberate grace, and if you looked closely, you could see it, the bearing of someone accustomed to authority. But Chen only saw what he wanted to see. Please state your name for the record, the judge instructed. Jessica Maria Martinez. Ms. Martinez, tell the court what happened on April 3rd. Jessica's voice was steady, clear, the kind of voice that commands a room without effort. I arrived at the courthouse at 10:45 a.m. for legitimate business. I approached the security checkpoint with proper identification clearly visible. Officer Chen immediately made assumptions about my presence without examining my credentials. She paused, consulting her meticulously organized notes. Without looking at my visitor pass, Officer Chen directed me to the welfare office. When I attempted to clarify that I had official business, he made derogatory comments about my personal life and stated that people like me do not belong in federal courthouses. How did you respond? I remained calm and attempted to show my credentials. Officer Chen struck me across the face with sufficient force to cause visible bruising. Barrett jumped up. Objection! The plaintiff is characterizing defensive action as assault. Jessica turned slightly toward Barrett. For just a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Not anger, but a patient knowing, like a chess player watching their opponent make a predictable mistake. Sustained. Describe the physical contact without characterization. Officer Chen's open palm made contact with my left cheek, with enough force to turn my head and cause my visitor pass to fall to the floor. I collected my documents, noted Officer Chen's badge number, and left to seek medical attention. Jessica reached into her briefcase and produced a folder. I have medical documentation photographed 4 hours after the incident, showing clear bruising and the pattern of finger marks. The photos were passed to the jury. Undeniable evidence. Barrett stood for cross-examination, clearly expecting to rattle this pro se plaintiff. Ms. Martinez, what legitimate business did you have at the courthouse that day? I was observing proceedings related to police reform initiatives. And what qualifies your interest in police reform? Jessica checked her watch, a subtle movement that somehow conveyed both precision and power. I have extensive experience with law enforcement accountability protocols and departmental oversight procedures. Barrett pressed on, unaware he was walking into quicksand. What kind of experience could you possibly have with police oversight? I've studied various reform implementation strategies and am quite familiar with Officer Chen's service record and disciplinary history. Chen leaned forward, whispering urgently to Barrett. How could she know about his record? Ms. Martinez, are you claiming you researched Officer Chen before this incident? I'm saying I'm very familiar with patterns of misconduct and the institutional failures that enable them. Barrett looked flustered. This wasn't going as planned. The woman he'd expected to easily discredit was demonstrating legal knowledge that seemed far beyond a typical plaintiff. Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is asking compound questions, Jessica said smoothly, citing the exact procedural rule. Sustained. Jessica checked her watch again. 1:52 p.m., 8 minutes. Ms. Martinez, Barrett continued, why are you representing yourself instead of hiring qualified counsel? I believe I'm quite qualified to represent my interests in this matter. But surely someone with actual legal training. Objection. Argumentative. Sustained. You could see it now. Barrett's confusion, Chen's growing unease, and Jessica's quiet confidence building toward something. Ms. Martinez, what do you hope to gain from this lawsuit? Accountability, justice, and assurance that what happened to me doesn't happen to others. Are you seeking money? The monetary damages, if awarded, will be donated to police accountability training programs. This case is about institutional change, not personal gain. That answer stopped Barrett cold. This wasn't how civil rights plaintiffs usually responded. Jessica's legal knowledge became increasingly apparent. She objected to questions with precise citations, demonstrated deep understanding of courtroom protocol, and spoke about law enforcement procedures with the fluency of an insider. Ms. Martinez, how do you explain your extensive knowledge of police procedures and legal protocols? Jessica smiled, a real smile this time, one that suggested she'd been waiting for exactly this question. All will become clear very soon, Counselor. She checked her watch once more. In fact, I have an important appointment at 2:00 p.m. that may provide relevant context. The judge looked puzzled. Ms. Martinez, are you requesting a recess? Not requesting, Your Honor, but I believe the court may find it beneficial when my appointment arrives. Chen was sweating now. Something about Jessica's confidence, her legal expertise, her mysterious references to his service record, none of it made sense. At exactly 1:58 p.m., Jessica's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and that knowing smile returned. Your Honor, my 2 p.m. appointment has arrived at the courthouse. With the court's permission, I believe this person's presence may shed considerable light on these proceedings. The courtroom buzzed with curiosity. Chen shifted nervously. Barrett looked confused. The jury leaned forward, and Jessica Martinez sat back in her chair, completely calm, as if she'd been orchestrating this exact moment from the very beginning. What Chen didn't know, what nobody knew, was that the woman he'd dismissed was about to become the most powerful person in his world. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let me take you back to the night before the trial. The evening before court, Jessica Martinez sat in her home office, surrounded by evidence of a life Chen couldn't have imagined. The walls told a story: police academy graduation photos, law enforcement leadership certificates, commendations for excellence, a law degree from Yale, and photos of Jessica in various police uniforms spanning 18 years of service. But tonight, her focus was on a thick file labeled Chen David Personnel Review. 13 misconduct complaints spread across her desk. 9 had been dismissed without proper investigation, buried under bureaucratic protection. Her laptop displayed a video call with Police Commissioner Williams. The timing is perfect, Jessica, Williams said. The swearing-in ceremony at 2 p.m. will send an unmistakable message about accountability. Jessica nodded. Chen has no idea what's coming. The office door opened. Jessica's 16-year-old son, Marcus, entered with concern written on his face. "Mom, why are you doing this yourself? Why not just hire a lawyer and move on?" Jessica looked at her son, seeing the question that would soon be answered in the most powerful way possible. Because sometimes, mijo, justice requires more than just winning. Sometimes it requires changing the entire system. Marcus sat on the edge of the desk. "But it's dangerous. Going against a cop when you're—" He gestured at his own brown skin. "When I'm Latina?" Jessica smiled. "Marcus, tomorrow you'll learn something about power. Real power doesn't come from a uniform or badge. It comes from competence, courage, and using both when it matters most." Her phone rang. Chief Rodriguez, retired, her mentor from her early days on the force. "Tomorrow's the day, Jessica?" "I've been ready for 18 years, Chief. Chen represents everything wrong with police culture. The assumption that a badge equals immunity, that certain people don't deserve basic respect. And when you reveal who you are?" Jessica's voice hardened with determination. "Then Chen learns that the woman he humiliated is about to become his commanding officer." After the call, Jessica practiced her testimony while organizing evidence with the precision of someone who'd ended careers before. Her dress uniform hung in the closet, midnight blue with 4 stars that would tomorrow transform her from plaintiff to police chief in one stunning moment. Marcus watched his mother's preparation with growing admiration. "Mom, you've been planning this whole thing." "Chen made his choices, mijo. I'm just ensuring those choices have consequences." Jessica set multiple alarms: 6 a.m. for final review, 8 a.m. for courthouse arrival, 1:30 p.m. for transition to police headquarters. Every detail calculated for maximum impact. "Tomorrow you'll see something rare," Jessica told her son. "You'll see a Latina woman not just demand respect, but command it from a position of undeniable authority." She closed the Chen file and placed it beside her swearing-in speech. 2 documents that would end one career and begin another. "What happens to Officer Chen after tomorrow?" Jessica's expression was thoughtful but resolute. "He faces real consequences from someone with the power to enforce them." As midnight approached, Jessica reviewed her timeline one final time, billed the case methodically during testimony. Then, at exactly 2 p.m., the moment when David Chen would discover that the woman he'd struck was about to become the highest-ranking police officer in the city. "Tomorrow at 2 p.m., Jessica said quietly to herself, "everything changes." Day 2 of the trial began with a shift Chen couldn't have anticipated. Jessica's legal team, she'd quietly retained counsel for evidence presentation while maintaining her pro-SE status for testimony, entered carrying boxes that made Chen's confidence crack. Attorney Park approached the bench with the gravity of someone about to detonate a bomb. "Your Honor, we've obtained significant evidence that directly contradicts the defendant's testimony." Barrett objected immediately. "Any additional evidence should have been disclosed." "Obtained through public records requests fulfilled yesterday," Park replied smoothly. "We're prepared to authenticate everything." The judge nodded. "Proceed." Park connected a laptop to the courtroom's display system. "Your Honor, we'll present unedited security footage from 6 different camera angles obtained directly from courthouse security." Chen's face went pale. His edited body cam conveniently started after the confrontation, but courthouse cameras ran continuously. "Ladies and gentlemen," Park began, "you're about to see what really happened." The first video began. Timestamp, 10:44 a.m. Chen was visible at his station, relaxed, laughing with a colleague. At 10:45 a.m., Jessica entered the frame. Professional appearance, confident stride, visitor pass clearly visible in her hand. The audio was crystal clear. Chen's voice. You lost, honey? The welfare line is around the corner. Jessica's calm response. Actually, I have an appointment here. Chen's mocking laugh. An appointment? Visiting your boyfriend in lockup? The jury watched Jessica's composure, her attempt to show her credentials, Chen's escalating aggression without provocation. Then came the moment that destroyed Chen's entire defense. Jessica standing completely still, hands at her sides. Chen's open palm striking her face with that sharp crack. The jury watched in stunned silence as Jessica touched her cheek, collected her papers with dignity, and quietly noted Chen's badge number before walking away. Park paused the video. Officer Chen testified under oath that Ms. Martinez was aggressive and threatening. The video clearly shows this testimony was false. Barrett was frantically whispering with Chen, whose face had gone ashen. Park continued with evidence that made Chen's situation progressively worse. The complete body cam footage showed the manipulation was obvious. Critical portions showing Chen's verbal abuse had been deliberately removed. This represents not just perjury, but evidence tampering in a federal proceeding. Medical expert Dr. Patricia Lin testified about Jessica's injuries. The bruising pattern is consistent with being struck by an open palm with significant force. There are no defensive wounds or signs of mutual combat. But Park wasn't finished. Court clerk Janet Chen, no relation, took the stand. She'd worked at the courthouse for 12 years. Did you witness the incident? I saw everything. I heard Officer Chen making those horrible comments. That woman never did anything wrong. Have you observed similar incidents with Officer Chen? Barrett objected, but the judge allowed it. Oh, yes. Chen's been doing this for years, always targeting black folks, Latino folks, anyone he thinks doesn't belong. We've complained multiple times. Nothing ever happens. The floodgates opened. Janet identified 10 similar incidents over 2 years where Chen screened people of color for additional checks that never found threats. He calls it keeping the riffraff out, but we all know what he means. The final evidence was devastating. Chen's complete personnel file, obtained through public records. Officer Chen has 13 documented misconduct complaints, all involving targeting people of color. In every case, his supervisors were aware, but chose to ignore them. Internal emails appeared on screen. Chen's supervisor had written, Chen's methods are questionable but effective at keeping certain elements away. Sometimes you bend the rules for order. Barrett attempted damage control, but the evidence was overwhelming. Chen's credibility was destroyed. His pattern of abuse exposed, his support system revealed as complicit. Jessica sat at the plaintiff's table, checking her watch. 1:48 p.m., 12 minutes until everything changed. At exactly 2 p.m., the courtroom doors opened with authority. Police Commissioner Williams entered in full-dress uniform, followed by 2 senior officials carrying a formal document case. Judge Harrison looked confused. Commissioner Williams, this is highly irregular. We're in the middle of proceedings. Your Honor, I apologize for the interruption, but I have an official announcement that directly pertains to these proceedings and cannot be delayed. Jessica Martinez slowly stood from the plaintiff's table. For the first time, Chen noticed something different about her posture. Not a victim seeking justice, but someone who commanded it. Commissioner Williams's voice filled the courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to announce that effective immediately, Jessica Maria Martinez has been sworn in as the new chief of police. The words hit like a physical shockwave. Gasps erupted. Jury members' eyes widened. Barrett's mouth fell open, but Chen's reaction was the most dramatic. His face drained of all color as reality crashed down on him. Jessica reached for her blazer and removed it with deliberate precision. Underneath was her dress uniform, midnight blue with polished silver buttons and 4 stars gleaming on each shoulder. 18 years of service ribbons decorated her chest. The transformation was breathtaking. The plaintiff seeking justice had become the ultimate law enforcement authority. The woman Chen had told to go to the welfare office was now the highest-ranking police officer in the jurisdiction. "Chief Martinez," Judge Harrison said, clearly struggling to process the revelation, "please confirm your position for the record." Jessica's voice carried new weight that filled every corner. "Yes, Your Honor. I am Jessica Maria Martinez, Chief of Police, sworn in this morning with full authority over all departmental personnel and operations." Her eyes found Chen's across the courtroom. He looked like a man watching his world collapse in real time. "This includes," Jessica continued with quiet precision, "full supervisory authority over Officer David Chen and the power to make immediate personnel decisions." Chen's breathing became shallow. The woman he had slapped, humiliated, dismissed as unworthy, was now his commanding officer. Every racist assumption, every degrading comment, every moment of abuse had been directed at the person who would now determine his fate. Commissioner Williams stepped forward. Chief Martinez's first official act was to request comprehensive review of all pending misconduct cases, with particular attention to patterns of discriminatory behavior. Jessica's briefcase revealed its true significance. She opened it to show not just legal documents, but official police files, policy manuals, reform implementation plans. This wasn't plaintiff preparation. This was executive strategic planning. "Your Honor," Jessica said, "this information provides important context for understanding why Officer Chen's behavior represents not individual misconduct, but systemic failure I've been brought in to address." Barrett, still reeling, attempted to salvage something. "Your Honor, this is clearly a conflict of interest." Jessica's response was swift and legally precise. "Counselor, my appointment occurred after the incident and after this lawsuit was filed. There's no legal conflict, only accountability." Chen finally found his voice, though it came out strangled. You planned this whole thing." Jessica turned to face him directly, her 4 stars catching the light. "Officer Chen, I plan to seek justice for an unprovoked assault. That you assaulted your future commanding officer speaks to your judgment, not my planning." The power dynamic had shifted so completely, it seemed to alter the very physics of the room. "Furthermore," Jessica continued, "effective immediately, you are suspended without pay pending the outcome of these proceedings and a comprehensive internal investigation." Chen's lawyer frantically shuffled papers, completely unprepared. The jury sat transfixed. This was justice and accountability in real time. Jessica checked her watch one final time. 2:05 p.m. Everything had gone exactly according to plan. The woman David Chen thought he could humiliate with impunity had just revealed herself as the most powerful person in his professional world. His career, reputation, and future were now in the hands of the person he'd treated as less than human. But here's the thing about justice. It's not just about the dramatic reveal. It's about the systematic dismantling of everything that enabled the abuse in the first place. And Jessica Martinez was just getting started. With her new authority revealed, Chief Martinez approached the witness stand where Chen sat like a trapped animal. The roles had reversed so completely that it felt like a different trial altogether. "Officer Chen," Jessica began, her voice carrying unmistakable command authority, "let's discuss your pattern of behavior toward people of color at the courthouse." Barrett objected weakly. "Your Honor, the plaintiff cannot interrogate—" "Your Honor," Jessica interrupted smoothly, "I'm appearing in my capacity as Chief of Police, conducting official questioning of a subordinate officer regarding documented misconduct. This is within my administrative authority. Judge Harrison, still processing the unprecedented situation, allowed it." Jessica opened a thick file Chen now recognized with horror, his complete personnel record. "Officer Chen, in your 15-year career, how many misconduct complaints have been filed against you?" Chen's voice was barely audible. I don't recall." Let me refresh your memory. 13 formal complaints, all involving allegations of discriminatory treatment. Shall I read them? Chen's hands trembled as Jessica methodically reviewed each incident. The pattern was undeniable. March 2021. Attorney Maria Gonzalez filed a complaint after you demanded her real identification, claiming her bar card was suspicious. June 2022. Dr. James Mitchell, a black federal prosecutor, reported you questioned his right to enter through the main entrance. September 2023. Professor Angela Davis, testifying as an expert witness, was subjected to additional screening based on your suspicion she was suspicious. With each case, Chen sank deeper into his chair. These weren't isolated incidents. They formed a clear pattern that had been systematically ignored. Officer Chen, in 15 years, have you ever filed a misconduct report against a white person for suspicious behavior? The question hung in the air. Chen's silence was answer enough. Let's examine the financial cost, Jessica continued. The city has paid $1.8 million in settlements for civil rights violations connected to your actions. Were you aware? No, ma'am, Chen whispered. Of course not. Your supervisors kept this information hidden to protect your career and their reputations. Jessica presented email chains revealing institutional complicity. Chen's supervisor had written, Chen's methods keep undesirables away. The end justifies the means. His captain responded, as long as no one sues successfully, let him handle security his way. Officer Chen, you didn't just abuse individual citizens. You trained junior officers in discriminatory practices. How many did you mentor? Chen's lawyer tried to object, but Chen was beyond help. 4 or 5. And did you teach them to profile based on race? I taught them to identify threats. Threats? Jessica's voice carried lethal precision. Was Dr. Mitchell a threat? Was Professor Davis? Was Attorney Gonzalez, who prosecuted federal crimes for 10 years? Each name hit Chen like a physical blow. Jessica pulled out victim impact statements. Parents afraid to bring children to the courthouse. Professionals who changed court schedules to avoid Chen's shifts. Law students who questioned whether the justice system truly served everyone equally. Officer Chen, do you understand your actions damaged not just individuals, but public trust in law enforcement? Chen was crying now. I was just trying to do my job. Your job, Jessica said with quiet fury, was to protect and serve all citizens equally. Instead, you turned the courthouse into a place where people of color were presumed guilty until proven worthy. Jessica presented financial records showing Chen cost the department millions in settlements, training programs, and administrative overhead. His discriminatory behavior had become a budget line item. Officer Chen, effective immediately, you are terminated from the police department for conduct unbecoming an officer, pattern of civil rights violations, and bringing dishonor to the badge. The words hit Chen like a final judgment. 15 years, pension, benefits, gone in a single sentence from the woman he'd thought he could humiliate without consequence. Badge and weapon, Officer Chen. Your law enforcement career is over. Chen's transformation from confident abuser to broken ex-cop was complete. The system that protected him for 15 years had finally found someone with the authority and courage to hold him accountable. The packed courtroom buzzed with anticipation as Chief Martinez prepared her closing argument. Media crews had arrived after word spread, and community members filled every seat. This had become more than a civil rights case. It was a referendum on police accountability itself. Jessica stood before the jury, her 4 stars reflecting the lights, but her demeanor remained grounded and accessible. Ladies and gentlemen, 3 hours ago, I stood before you as a plaintiff seeking justice. I stand before you now as chief of police, but my message remains the same. No one is above accountability, regardless of their badge. Her voice carried both personal conviction and professional authority. You've seen overwhelming evidence that Officer Chen committed assault and violated my civil rights. But this case represents something larger than one incident between two people. Jessica gestured toward Chen, slumped in defeat. Officer Chen believed he could act with impunity because the system always protected him. 13 complaints ignored. $1.8 million in taxpayer money spent covering up his misconduct. Junior officers trained in his discriminatory methods. The jury listened intently. This case is about whether we accept a justice system where some people are presumed worthy of respect while others must prove their status. Officer Chen didn't assault me because I was threatening. He assaulted me because he assumed I didn't belong. Jessica's voice grew stronger. When Officer Chen directed me to the welfare office, he revealed his worldview. When he made assumptions about my personal life, he exposed his prejudices. When he struck me for showing legitimate identification, he demonstrated that to him I wasn't deserving of basic human dignity. She moved closer to the jury. The defense wants you to believe this was a misunderstanding, that Officer Chen was doing his job. But his job was never to humiliate citizens based on appearance. His job was to protect and serve everyone equally. Jessica pulled out the original visitor pass Chen had struck from her hand. This piece of paper represents more than my right to enter a courthouse. It represents every citizen's right to access justice without being presumed unworthy because of their race. Barrett rose for closing arguments, but his position was hopeless. Officer Chen made a mistake, but destroying a 15-year career serves no one's interests. The words felt hollow after the evidence presented. Sarah's rebuttal was swift. Counselor speaks of Officer Chen's family, but what about the families he terrorized? What about Dr. Mitchell's children who watched their father be humiliated? What about Professor Davis's students who learned that credentials don't protect you from prejudice? Jessica's words carried emotional weight. Forgiveness is important, but it cannot come without accountability. Officer Chen had 15 years to change. 15 years of complaints that should have prompted reflection. Instead, he doubled down on discrimination. Her closing reached its crescendo. I became a police officer 18 years ago because I believed in justice. I pursued leadership because I wanted the badge to represent protection for all citizens, not intimidation for some. Her voice carried both pain and resolve. Today you have the power to send a message that abuse of authority will not be tolerated, that civil rights violations have real consequences, and that justice applies to everyone equally. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes. When they returned, the foreman stood with historic weight. In Martinez versus Chen, we find the defendant liable for assault and civil rights violations. We award damages of $450,000 and recommend immediate criminal charges. The courtroom erupted. Community members cheered. Media scrambled. Chen's supporters sat in stunned silence. But Jessica's response surprised everyone. She stood and addressed the court directly. Your Honor, I respectfully decline the monetary damages. I request the awarded amount be directed to establishing a police bias training program and civilian oversight committee. Judge Harrison nodded approvingly. So ordered. The court also recommends the U.S. attorney pursue criminal charges for assault under color of authority. Chen was immediately taken into custody. The man who entered that morning as an officer with arresting power was leaving in handcuffs. Outside the courthouse, Jessica addressed gathered media, flanked by community leaders and civil rights advocates. Today's verdict sends a clear message that law enforcement officers are not above the law they swore to uphold. As Chief of Police, I commit to implementing comprehensive reforms to ensure this pattern never repeats. A reporter shouted, "Chief Martinez, is this personal vindication?" Jessica's response encapsulated the day's meaning. This isn't about personal vindication. This is about institutional accountability. Officer Chen's behavior was a symptom of a system that tolerated discrimination. Today, that system begins to change. Applause echoed through the plaza as Jessica Martinez, no longer just a victim seeking justice, but a leader with power to enforce it, outlined her vision for police reform and community healing. David Chen's reign of terror was over. A new era of accountability had begun. But the real question remained. Would the changes last? 6 months after the courthouse plaza echoed with applause, the transformation was remarkable. David Chen was serving a 14-month federal sentence for assault under color of authority and civil rights violations. His pension revoked. His law enforcement certification permanently stripped. The man who once terrorized courthouse visitors now worked in the prison kitchen. His uniform replaced with orange, his authority reduced to nothing. But the more important changes were happening in the department Chief Martinez now led. Courthouse security incidents involving people of color had dropped by 81% under new protocols emphasizing dignity and respect. The bias training program funded by Chen's lawsuit had become a national model. Jessica stood before the latest police academy graduating class, the most diverse group in department history. 45% women, 62% people of color, all selected for character, intelligence, and commitment to constitutional policing. "Officers," Jessica addressed the graduates, "you wear a badge that represents the highest ideals of public service. It doesn't grant you authority over people. It grants you authority to serve people." The transformation extended beyond individual officers to systemic change. Civilian oversight committees, mandatory body cameras with third-party storage, zero tolerance for discriminatory behavior. 3 supervisors who enabled Chen's misconduct were terminated, sending a clear message that institutional cover-ups would no longer be tolerated. The $450,000 settlement funded not just training, but community healing initiatives. Former victims of police misconduct now participated in dialogue sessions with officers, building bridges between law enforcement and communities. Marcus Martinez watched his mother's transformation with pride that extended beyond familial admiration. He was witnessing history, not just the rise of the first Latina police chief in their city, but the emergence of a leader who proved that justice delayed doesn't mean justice denied. Jessica's story had become a symbol of hope, shared millions of times across social media. The original courthouse video, now viewed with full context, served as a powerful reminder that appearances deceive and everyone deserves dignity. Speaking at a national police reform conference, Jessica reflected on the journey from victim to victor to visionary. Change doesn't happen because we hope for it. Change happens because we demand it, fight for it, and refuse to accept that this is just how things are. The audience of police chiefs, community leaders, and civil rights advocates gave her a standing ovation that lasted 7 minutes. "Justice isn't just about punishment," Jessica concluded. "It's about progress. It's about ensuring what happened to me never happens to anyone else." If this story inspired you, share it with others who need to see that justice is possible even when odds seem impossible. Have you ever been underestimated because of how others saw you? How did you prove them wrong? Share your story in the comments below. Remember, justice may be slow, but it's worth fighting for. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and never let anyone convince you that you don't belong where you have every right to be.